There are 17 brawlers, gadgets, and star powers that I'm seeing a lot of that you guys just need to stop using because they're not very good right now. And I can guarantee you that somebody is going to watch this video and they're going to comment and say, you know what, Kairos, you're wrong, okay? That brawler or gadget or star power is good. If you guys see a comment like that, I just want you guys to know that they're wrong and I'm right. Obviously. Okay, no, seriously about you guys' opinion, so let me know if you disagree. First up, we got Shelly. She isn't very good right now. Actually, you know what? I take that back. She is actually kind of good as a counter to some of the strongest brawlers in the game. So like, you know, you got Darryl or Rosa. If you see someone playing a Darryl or Rosa, yeah, you can play Shelly. But even if you want to play Shelly or you have a quest for her, I do not recommend using her fast forward gadget as long as you have her clay pigeons gadget as an option, okay? Most players know to keep their distance away from them and a Shelly, and that little dash just isn't usually enough for Shelly to get a big enough advantage to make a big difference, okay? You can definitely make some sneaky plays with it, but it's definitely not something you can consistently count on against skilled players. And even if you do get to use it, it does nothing to shield damage coming toward her. So if anything, it increases the damage that she ends up taking because people just auto fire and it just deals damage to them, okay? Shelly's clay pigeons gadget is almost always the more useful gadget because there aren't very many brawlers that can actually outrange her. And it also increases the amount of damage that she gets from a medium range. So she can actually get a lot more kills using it, okay? Is it the best gadget? No. But it is the best gadget for Shelly, so stop using her fast forward gadget. Next, we have Nita's bear paws gadget, which makes Bruce do a little bit of a stun after a delay. And that delay is quite a bit of delay. It gives you actually plenty of time to get away from the Bruce, and I'm not sure if you guys have realized this, but people have been playing Brawl Stars for a long time now, and they now know that that bear isn't friendly, it's not cuddly, it's not snuggly, it's not a little teddy bear, it's gonna eat you, okay? I'll be the first to admit that when you do get a stun with that gadget, it is very satisfying, but you get a lot more usage out of her bear's health than the bear's damage against brawlers typically, like most of the time, which is exactly why her faux fur gadget makes just way more sense to use. In fact, as long as you are alive to activate that gadget, it is almost always useful, which is why you should use this gadget more than bear paws. Next, we have Jessie's recoil spring gadget. Stop using it, please. I'm not talking to my enemies, okay? My enemies, they can use it all they want. It's my teammates. My teammates should stop using it, okay? Pretty much, Jessie's turret is really good in a lot of different ways, but one of the things that it's not good about is actually hitting its shots. So when you increase its fire rate, all it does is helps Jessie's turret do a lot more of nothing. At least in most cases, right? It's usually really easy to play around Jessie's turret and it's really easy to destroy it, especially if you have a thrower on your team. And obviously there is an exception in Heist if Jessie is left alone on the safe and she has a supercharged up. But even then, I think there's a really good argument to use her spark plug gadget instead because that's going to actually stun people. It makes her turret actually hit its shots because anybody that's slowed down will actually get hit by the turret. In fact, you'll get hit by more shots if you're slowed down than if you're just, you know, you got the idea, right? It makes it a lot easier for all of your teammates to actually hit enemy targets, and that's going to give you more kills. It's going to give you more control of the map. You guys get the idea. Next is Dynamite's fidget spinner gadget. You know, gives you all the spinnies and throws dynamites everywhere in the least helpful way. This gadget is so unreliable. It's incredibly inaccurate. I mean, he throws so many sticks of dynamite all over that it's bound to hit something, but it's not always going to hit the target that you want it to hit. And even if it does, it's unlikely to actually take somebody out because none of the dynamites land on the same spot. So even if they are moving around, it's actually really unlikely that somebody will get hit by more than one dynamite stick. If you want to use this just for the speed boost, okay, fine. The speed boost is nice. But Dynamite's satchel charge gadget is arguably, I mean, I think I consider it to be the most unfair gadget in the game. Like, you activate it, you get hit by it, and it's like instant death. I don't care what brawler you are, like, Dynamite is just gonna shred through you no matter what. And I see no reason to use fidget spinner over it unless you just like being a fast spinny boy. If that's the case, no shame. No shame. Next, we have Tick's Mine Mania gadget, which doubles the number of mines that he throws for his next attack. Tick's main attack is all about map control, which means that, you know, even though he can deal a lot of damage with all 3 bombs, he very rarely hits more than just 1 bomb. Sometimes he hits 2, but very rarely does it happen to hit all 3. So adding more bombs to the same area doesn't really make this attack more useful, in my opinion, okay? You may think you're doubling the power of your next attack, but what usually happens is that you're only going to hit maybe 1, maybe 2 extra bombs, and even then you might not not even hit any additional bombs, right? That is useful, and this gadget isn't as useless as some other gadgets in the game, but Tick's Last Hurrah gadget is so much better in pretty much every situation, okay? You might be tempted to use Mind Mania if you're facing brawlers that like won't ever get near you, but honestly, even if you were to hit an enemy with Last Hurrah, the shield alone is way more useful than the 3 extra bombs in one attack, in my opinion. At least until some sort of balance change happens, which if that happens, then sure, maybe you guys can throw this video out the window. But for right now, my enemies should stop paying attention and my teammates should continue paying attention. Next, we have Darryl's Tar Barrel gadget, which slows enemies that are close to Darryl. Tar Barrel doesn't really do a lot to complement Darryl's playstyle, okay? He's a close range brawler, which means that enemies are going to keep their distance away from you. And if Darryl does use his super and he rolls onto an enemy, they're probably not going to be able to escape, even if they aren't slowed down, because Darryl can already move faster than the average brawler, and he does a ton of damage up close, okay? If a brawler is able to get away from Darryl, it's usually because they have some sort of an ability, like a jump or a dash, something that can actually get them away, so slowing them down actually wouldn't help in that situation either. Now, his recoiling rotator gadget is a much better choice because it actually helps Darryl charge up his super much faster. It doesn't do very much damage, but sometimes just being able to charge up your super with that, and by the way, it does have a longer range than his regular attack, that's all that he needs to charge up his super and then roll onto them and just obliterate the enemy, okay? Even though Darryl's super is always charging, it can take a really long time to charge if nobody actually gets close. So for a brawler that relies on his super as much as Darryl, I feel like this gadget is by far the better choice, and it's going to be a lot more useful a lot more often. Next up, we got Penny. No gadgets, no star powers, just Penny. I will be the first to admit that I love playing Penny. If you can get some satisfying Penny kills, she's just insane. But I have seen way too many people using her in Club League and Power League. And if you're anywhere near the competitive meta, there are just better options. In fact, anytime you want to play Penny, Jessie's almost always a better option. And even then, Jessie's usually not, she's not like the most competitive option at the moment. But the thing about Penny is that she doesn't have the range to play against long range brawlers, and she doesn't have the damage to play against close range brawlers. Her super is amazing. It can control like so much. And if you do get that lucky splash shot with her, I mean, like, oh wow, that's so great, right? But it takes a lot of time for her to charge up her super, and even if she charges up once a game, it's very likely that she'll never charge it up ever again. And it's very, like, it's immediately countered by throwers. Like, if Penny plays against a thrower, it's like, oh wow, I really wish I would have been playing anybody else, because that thrower is just going to focus on the turret. I'm not going to get it out, and Penny without her turret is just not very good. I'm not going to tell you to stop playing her if you just want to play her, or like especially if you have a quest, obviously, but you'll probably do better in Power League and Club League by picking somebody else. Next is BB's batting stance star power, which gives her a shield when her home run bar is charged. BB already has a lot of health, and typically having a shield on a high health brawler is actually really good. And she actually has a gadget that also helps heal her, so that helps keep her alive as well. And this is probably one of the more controversial picks on this video, but I think that BB is just so much better when she's able to run faster, okay? Her shield doesn't really help her get close to enemies much any faster with the shield, and it just kind of gives the enemy more time to charge their shots and their supers on her and use their supers to kind of control her. And it can actually be really useful if you have a healer on your team. But other than that, I personally think that her better star power is home run. Like, honestly, I like it. It's better in my opinion, okay? This star power helps her approach enemies, and it helps her dodge their shots easier, so that's more survivability right there. I just think that evasiveness is a lot more important than tankiness with BB, so yeah. Next is B's honeycomb star power, which gives her a shield when her attack is supercharged. B has one of the lowest HPs in the game, okay? So like, having a shield on her with as a low HP brawler, it's like cool, but it's not worth it in my opinion, okay? She's also really long range, so she's unlikely to take a lot of damage except for really long range brawlers most of the time. And even then, you don't want to conserve your supercharged shot just so you can tank a little bit more as B. No, you want to use that supercharged shot, right? She's clearly a glass cannon, right? Really squishy, deals a lot of damage. So you should try and use some sort of a gadget or ability that helps her increase her damage rather than give her a gadget that is just not as good for her, okay? Whether B has a shield up or not, I pretty much always use her insta B load over her honeycomb star power because I'd rather have an extra shot at having a supercharged shot once I miss the first one, because that's an additional 3,000 damage to against a brawler instead of just like a regular attack, right? I recommend the additional damage over the additional defense, and I know that like, hey, if you hit every single shot, it doesn't matter if you have that star power, but let's be honest, we see shots get missed even by the most skilled players. And while we're talking about B, let's talk about her rattled hive gadget, which sends 3 bees out to deal damage. I know I just said to add as much damage to B's attacks as possible, and you know, she's a glass cannon, deal a lot of damage, right? But this is another gadget that can be really tough to aim, and it doesn't typically provide a big payout even if you do aim it well. It's pretty easy to avoid from far away, and it hardly deals any damage from up close. And on top of that, it doesn't actually pierce through targets, so if you accidentally hit something that you didn't want to hit, then it's just like, it can be wasted a lot of the time. Her honey molasses gadget, which actually drops down that sticky area, is a lot more useful because it shuts down an area of the map. Any opponent caught in it is going to be very easy for B to actually take out, or her teammates, which is really awesome. And it can even block a strong attack coming toward B if you like really need to use it and you can't dodge. Next is Edgar's Fisticuff star power, which increases healing by 25%. It's honestly kind of hard to tell how much of a difference this star power actually makes, since Edgar already heals a little bit of HP, but after significant testing, I've determined that I like hard landing a lot better. In fact, it's the go-to one. Just stop using fisticuffs if you're on my team, please. Edgar is a simple brawler that just tries to defeat whoever he is within range as quickly as possible, and a lot of the times he either takes them out or he dies. And you know, obviously Fisticuffs is going to help him outlast that opponent. That still can be technically good, but being able to take out the enemies faster is usually going to be more beneficial most of the time. I will admit that Fisticuffs is probably better against more than one enemy at a time because that healing is just insane, but I would take the additional 1000 damage with hard landing when he actually lands with his super on an enemy pretty much every other situation because of how good it is in 1v1s. Next is Spike's Fertilizer star power, which heals him while he is standing in his super. I'll admit that when you get this ability to save you in a rough situation and deal damage to an enemy, like, it's amazing. Like, wow, that provides so much value. It's super exciting, but Spike has one of the lowest HPs in the game and doesn't benefit as much from healing abilities. And it also forces you to throw his super very close to him, which isn't bad in some situations, but most of the time it's more useful to hit somebody further away or even block out an important part of the map, okay? His curveball star power changes the pattern of his main attack so that enemies have to learn an entirely different pattern in order to dodge his attacks. And yes, it is possible to dodge the spinning projectiles, but they cover a larger area and mathematically are harder to dodge, okay? You'll hit your opponents a lot more with curveball and charge up more supers, which is why I think curveball is just the better star power right now. Next is Crow's defense booster gadget, and honestly, this isn't a bad gadget. It's really simple to use, it's strong, it's effective in like any situation, any map, any mode, and I would obviously really like to use it. I mean, okay, maybe the one situation we want to use this is solo showdown, okay, but this is competitive. I'm helping you guys win more trophies, right? The biggest issue with this gadget is that it's just not as strong as his slowing toxin gadget. Slowing toxin is insane, okay? Crow's main attack is really hard to miss if a brawler is like within his range, and if you are able to slow them down for 5 seconds, they're probably gonna get taken out. A 5-second slow is absolutely insane for a gadget, and he can do it 3 times. Plus, it's not actually that difficult for Crow to hit more than one target and slow multiple targets. In fact, I've seen people wipe out complete enemy teams because they slowed all 3 enemies. I mean, it's just insane, okay? It's the better of the 2 gadgets, and so just don't use his defense booster, even though it's a good gadget. Next, we have Leon's clone projector gadget. Why are people still using this? Any experienced player almost always sees right through this gadget. Like, maybe like it pops out and like surprises some people like in a scare tactic situation, but it walks in like a straight line to the nearest enemy. It doesn't stop. It like moves like all janky, if that's even a word. Like it's so easy to tell. It's so easy to tell. Anytime I'm playing against a Leon, I look at it and I'm like, oh, nope, that's an actual Leon. You can tell. Oh, nope, that's a clone projector. I'm just going to ignore it because it's just gonna disappear eventually. It's pretty much only useful for tanking a hit for you, but Leon's lollipop drop gadget can also do that. And even though it got nerfed, it's actually still like, it's really good. It's still the better gadget, and it's not even close. Even though it doesn't last all game, you still get great use out of it. So I definitely recommend using Lollipop Trap, unless like something changes with Leon's gadgets in the future update. Like seriously, like I just want to stop seeing any shadow clones on my team. Like seriously. Next we have Gale. Just Gale. Stop using Gale, at least until he gets some serious buffs, or you know, if you can play him in the map maker maps, I'm fine with that. When it comes to cheesy plays and unexpected strategies, Gale is the king, okay? He's got so many crazy tricks up his sleeve, and honestly, he's pretty fun to do because of that. But as far as being a consistent brawler in the competitive meta, Gale he just can't hold his own against a lot of brawlers in the game. In fact, he's one of the worst brawlers in the game right now, okay? His range isn't very far, at least for how much damage he's actually able to deal. His super is like crazy weak. It's really easy to play around on, at least on most maps. And Gale's gadgets are useful, but with a weak main attack and super, he just doesn't defeat brawlers very well. Admittedly, he is a decent counter to close range brawlers, but there are still plenty of other better options like Stu or Spike, right? Or even Ems, or Jean. Right? Like they've got gadgets that are just great for it. But on top of that, they can also hold their own on other long range brawlers as well, which is why I recommend picking one of them when you're thinking about picking Gale. And another brawler, which kind of saddens me to say, is to stop playing Colette. Colette's one of those brawlers where she is a good counter to tanky brawlers and is probably even better than Gale, but she really struggles against those longer range brawlers since their low health really isn't a weakness against her, right? Like, in fact, it's like really frustrating when you're playing a Colette and you face up against a tick and you're like, I can't even kill you with 4 ammo. Like, she requires 5 ammos to take out a tick. It's so annoying, right? And with more and more brawlers that have supers or gadgets that can spawn obstacles, Colette's attacks become less and less threatening. Her super, I will say, is actually really good, but sometimes it can be risky since there's like a moment in time where the enemy can auto aim on you and take you out. And it's weird because Colette was a top tier brawler when she first was released, and she hasn't changed too much since then, but there are just other brawlers that are getting better at dealing with her. So maybe it's time for a little bit of a buff for her. I don't know. Next we got Colonel Russ's air support gadget, which, you know, he just drops a bunch of bombs on the field, right? This ability has the potential to deal insane amounts of damage, but it takes a while for those shots to land on the ground, which actually makes it really easy to avoid. Like, if he activates it, you just walk in a straight line in any direction and you'll avoid them. Even if you do get hit with it though, it's very likely to actually like knock you out of the range of the ability, so you're unlikely to get hit again. There are some rare situations that I have seen where like one knocks a person into another one and then it gets back and forth and they just like die. Yes, it can come in handy when you need to prevent enemies from going to like a certain location, but Colonel Russ's take cover gadget is way more consistent. And yes, there are some brawlers that can completely ignore the sandbags because they pierce through them, but for the brawlers that can't shoot through them, that gadget, I mean, it's really difficult to play around. It's really annoying. And since Colonel Russ can shoot through them, he will win pretty much any 1v1 against a brawler that can't shoot through them, and that is definitely worth the risk. I don't know if this is pro advice, but pretty much anytime somebody plays Rico, I pick Colonel Russ and just use that gadget, and it's like, it works for me at least. And there you have it, 17 brawlers, gadgets, and star powers to stop using. Once again, if you guys disagree with me, I'm right and you're wrong. Okay, obviously the best part about playing Brawl Stars is that you get to play it how you want, and you guys have some different play styles than maybe I do, okay? With that said though, I hope that these tips help you win more matches. Make sure you guys subscribe for some more Brawl Stars tips right here, and you can subscribe for some Clash mini videos right there, and subscribe for my newest channel, my Free Fire channel right there. And also here's a YouTube video that the YouTube thinks you'll enjoy, so make sure, you know, check it out. I bet you YouTube is probably right. They probably know everything about you. Anyway, that's weird. For now, this is KairosTime ticking by. We'll see you in Brawl Stars.